So welcome everybody. Really happy to have a nice session again today. So welcome to the GIMI think tank. It's a weekly virtual forum composed of GIMI ambassadors, certified training partners, and other experts to share knowledge around innovation and promote collaboration. So participants are usually innovation leaders from industry, government, academia. They come usually from 6 continents. And the purpose of this forum is to create awareness around innovation in general, but also the GIMI framework. We usually talk about innovation, state of innovation of country, GIMI basically progress and what the partners are doing to democratize the innovation around the world, and cutting edge trends basically, which are shaping the future and of different industries. So I'm really happy to have today Katarina Brud. Let me share the screen here to share more about her. So Katarina is director of Mobility X Lab. She is going to talk today about pioneering the future of mobility, and which is a story of a startup corporate collaboration, which we know is hard, and we would like to learn more today from Katarina how you made it happen. Actually, besides leading Mobility X Lab, she has a very diverse experience. She has a degree in international economics, political science. She has a MBA, executive MBA from University of Gothenburg, Sweden. But also she has experience working in corporates, like market research. She has experience as a diplomat trainee at the Embassy of Sweden. And of course, she has experience in startups, creating her own startup. But I know, Katarina, that you have experience as well with the HALT prize. So I'll stop sharing the screen and trying to spotlight you as well. So doing a very short discussion here. So I know you have experience also on HALT prize, and this is how you and Hitendra got to know each other. Which is all about social entrepreneurship and social impact. So I see your diverse experience in diplomacy. I see in corporate world, startups, and social impact. Pretty much you have all the basically sectors, the main sectors. And why did you basically join the mobility industry? Why a startup in mobility? What did you see there? And basically how you are trying to make a significant change on innovation in that industry.
Right. So to answer that, I think it has to do with my personality and kind of my experience. And I think I am an intrapreneur. So I like to build new things and connecting dots and getting people together to achieve new things. And that's a huge driver for me. I love history, but I also love the future. So I think how I ended up in the automotive and transportation industry, now pioneering the future of mobility, it's, you know, I had a background from supporting startups, but also working with a large corporate, Maersk Line. And I understood how these kind of two different, I usually say animals, were in need of each other. And so in the location where we're located on the West Sweden, there's a lot of automotive industry. And I then said that working with this large corporate, I thought it was pretty slow, and my entrepreneur spirit was not getting enough, engagement, I think. So I wanted to go back and work with startups and entrepreneurs and innovation again. That's what I felt. And then I talked to the network, and I heard on the west coast of Sweden, they wanted to establish a platform where they could bring together several industry players, large corporates, and startups and scale-ups. And when I heard that, the hair on my arms was just like, woof, oh, this is so cool. We really, really need this. And I had no experience from the automotive industry, but I understood what it meant to bring people together and what it meant to be a large corporate and startups, and the different capabilities those two animals have, and the need and the value that can be created bringing them together. So that's kind of the background of the story.
Great.
Yeah.
Katarina, you hit the nail right on the head, because are two different animals, right? Corporate and startups. And how are you making it work, like both of them? and what is your startup about, and how you are dealing with innovation with 5G technology, AI, VR, and basically all health devices right now that we see incorporated basically in this industry. So the floor is yours. We are really eager to learn more about your experience and get extract insights from that.
Yes, so I'll run through fairly quickly as we have limited time, but I'll definitely look forward to the questions you have, and I'll try to answer those. But I want to set the scene, and I'll just touch a little bit about, you know, Sweden, a little bit about my background, and then also explaining what it is I do, who's doing it, and what are we achieving. So that's kind of what I'll present to you now. So I just want to confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we do.
And also this slide. So I put this together this morning, and you probably heard of Bluetooth, Volvo cars, Spotify, Minecraft, ball bearings, pacemakers, H&M, Candy Crush, the 3-point seatbelt. We're all using that, right? So these are innovations that actually come from Sweden. And Sweden is a fairly small country. It's only 10 million people there. We're kind of up north. But we are one of the most innovative countries in the world. And if you look at the Global Innovation Index, we're on place number 2 currently. And we've been there, I think, for 16 years or something like that. So we've been in top 3 for the last 16 years. So there's really a part of culture and innovation in Sweden. And I think you might know some of these, you know, innovations and companies that I show you here. So yeah, Sweden is one of the most innovative countries in the world. And me, you brought, you touched upon my background, and I just wanted to share that I grew up on the 4th largest island on the Swedish west coast, so a fairly small place. 20,000 people live there, 2,000 in the small village. But I always had an interest of you know, the world, and I felt the world was very small, so that brought me to different places. When I was about 8, I saw Jerry Lee Lewis in a documentary playing the piano. So I then went to my parents and said, I'm starting playing the piano. So music is still a big passion in my life today. And I think it also is my kind of strong will. I know what I want and I'll get there. And you also have Nelson Mandela, and that I also saw him on TV when I was a small child. So I always had the dream to go to South Africa. And later on in my education, I got to study at the Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. And you see here, I studied international economics and political science. I did a high school in Oregon, US. You see former President Clinton, that was in the engagement of the Hult Prize, as you mentioned. I've been at the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce in Mississippi, Washington, D.C. with our ambassador, Jan Eliasson. And then I've been in Sweden supporting startups and entrepreneurs with a business plan competition called Venture Cup that McKinsey & Company started 1998. So that's fairly my background. And you also have one of the largest, you know, ships in the world, container ships here, where I worked with Maersk Line with marketing strategy. And today, I still, as I grew up on an island, the ocean is very dear to me, and I still play the piano. I have 2 kids that take up a lot of my time. I'm also a member of Rotary, and I've just graduated from the Executive MBA now in June, and I lead Mobility X Lab, which I will talk a little bit more about. So 6 years ago, the industry, the automotive and transportation industry, the CEOs came together and said, we need to keep the competitiveness here in our industry. What do we need to do? We need a platform. We need to work closer together with each other. We need to work faster, and we need to work in a new way. And we also need to work with startups and scale-ups. And this was truly a mind shift 6 years ago, but because it was not about these large global companies saying we need to invent everything in-house. We actually need to partner and collaborate with the ones who have new technologies and innovations. So 3rd of October, 2017, we started Mobility X Lab, and it was supported by the CEOs from the large corporate partners. We didn't know what to do then. And I started, that was kind of my first day at the job when we launched. And since then, I have, together with the partners, formed and shaped what is Mobility X Lab today. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And Mobility X Lab our vision is pioneering the future mobility. And we do that by accelerating global innovation based on Swedish collaboration culture. And at the bottom of the screen, you see our partners that we currently have. and they all work with different components that is pioneering the future of mobility. Ericsson is connectivity. Polestar is a performance car who also wants to create the first climate neutral car by 2030. And they understand by wanting that, having that vision, they need to collaborate with others because they can't do it alone. We have Volvo Group Sensect, who works with software for autonomous driving. Magna, Veoneer, a Swedish company working with autonomous safety, was acquired by Magna recently, so now they are a partner. Sevt is also working with innovation in the automotive industry. And you might say, so Swedish collaboration culture, does that matter? But as I showed you in the beginning, there's something in the water in Sweden that makes us good at innovation. It makes us good at collaborating. And I also know that presenting different ways on how we collaborate in Sweden, I've also seen that different organizations and companies try to replicate that abroad, but they do not succeed. So I do think there's something in the water here in Sweden, and that makes us good at collaborating, even though we have a very international environment and our colleagues are from all over the world and so on, but something really works. And it might be the flat, we have flat organizations. Mobility X Lab is hosted by Lindholmen Science Park, and that's a not-for-profit organization, which brings a lot of benefits to us. We act as a neutral platform. We don't take any equity in the startups and so on. So it's in a way risk-free to join Mobility X Lab. It also means that we can look for funding from the Swedish Innovation Agency, Vinnova, or the region, and get support in that sense, because we have the purpose of creating value for our corporate partners, but also for the startups and scale-ups that join Mobility X Lab. And what we do, and looking back 6 years, my second day at work, I called up some startups and said that we want to create this platform where we want to match you with industry players within the automotive and transportation industry. Is that of interest to you? And what they said is like, yes, it's impossible to get in touch with them. Well, sure, I know where their headquarters at, but if I go there, there's an iron gate. I can't even get through. And even if I get through the iron gate, I come to reception and I don't know who to speak with. And even if I get to speak to someone, there's a reorganization, and then that person moves on somewhere and I don't have anyone to talk to. So I heard that from several startups, and I realized that we're really onto something here. There's a need in the market. It's just not my fielding that's actually startups saying this. So back then, what we decided to do was, of course, matching the industry partners with emerging companies. I say that as we have startups and scale-ups that bring different technology and innovation that is of interest to our partners. But also, because there's plenty, and looking like forward 6 years now, there's a lot of, I would say, organizations and tech scouts that match, industry with startups, but we don't even do that. We have a collaboration framework where we support both the startups and the partners in their journey to make sure something happens. And I'll show you a little bit about what we do there as well. And also when I asked the startups early on and said, so what is it that you need? What are you looking for? And they didn't say money in the first kind of breath or their first answer. They said, we really want to get the connections. So that's what our offer is, the possibility and opportunity to accelerate together with our industry partners. And also what's unique with what we do at Mobility X Lab as this innovation hub is that when a startup or scale up is invited to us, they get a dedicated contact person from one of the partner companies that will support during the way and the collaboration. But also, at least 2 of the partners here needs to have an interest in collaborating with the startup, because we want to create an ecosystem. We want to create a startup that gets connected with many at the same time. And this is really, really interesting because today, all these companies, they have their one-to-one, we want to work with startups, and that's fine. But if you want to create a new culture and do things in a new way and to be challenged a bit, I think the Mobility X Lab platform is excellent in that sense, because there's so much going on when a startup gets the connection with several partners. And all these partners, we meet every week and discuss the collaborations together. So a lot of serendipity happens there as well, because when a startup is working with Polestar, for example, perhaps Ericsson is seeing the progress of that and says, we would like to join. And they didn't think that from the start, and so on. And there's also lots of learning from our industry partners, for example, that when they have challenges with purchasing, then Volvo Group can say that, oh, we have a new department called innovative purchasing. You can learn from this. So there's lots of knowledge sharing to accelerate collaborations as well. If you haven't been, I would like to invite you all to the west of Sweden. There's an area called Lindholmen, which you see here on the map. And what's so amazing with kind of this pretty small space is that it's so dense with these automotive and transportation companies. They're all located within walking distance, and we're right in the middle of that. We also have Geely Innovation Center on this map as well. We have the two technical universities in Sweden here. We have AI Sweden, which work with, democratizing AI and getting Sweden to accelerate within that. So there's so much happening on a very, very dense area on the other side of the river in Gothenburg, so to say. So it's a very, very amazing place. And I don't think many people might not know where, Gothenburg even is on the West Coast, because Stockholm is our capital. But there's so much, there's such an amazing automotive cluster here, and they're all very prone to innovation and also sustainability. So if you haven't visited, I would encourage you to come one day, and a very international environment as well. Yes, another uniqueness of kind of our organization and setup. As I mentioned, we're hosted by Lindholmen Science Park. So I have a team that's a part of that. You see us in the middle. When I started, it was only myself, and then I had teams from the partners, and you see them in the different kind of circles here on the screen. And I think this is a unique setup, because as we started Mobility X Lab, it was me with the management team. We're all representatives from our partners. So I worked very close with them and said, how do we set this up? What makes sense for you? How do we do it? If we're doing something new, if we're doing this together, how would that look like? So this is kind of the setup was still kept today, and it works very well as we're deeply integrated with our partner companies. Then we have a number which it says 100 partner leads. And what this means is that every time a startup gets invited to Mobility X Lab, they get a dedicated contact person from the partner company that we also work together with. But there are over hundreds now, so we couldn't put them all there within their photos. And what do we do? So we have a program that's rolling each 6 months, and I would say it's 2 parallel tracks at the same time here. So each 6 months, we talk to our partners and say, what's your strategy now? And where are areas of interest that are of interest to all of our partner companies? So we get focus areas which are of interest of many. We don't work with specific challenges that a specific company has, because that would be very narrow-minded. I think they have their own setup for that. So we work with focus areas, say electromobility, sustainability, autonomous enablers, where it makes sense for many of our partners to work together. So we then have these focus areas, and then we go out and look for startups, and they apply to us, and we have a selection process of which startups will join us for the coming 6 months. And the partners are deeply engaged within this, because, for example, if it's autonomous enablers and autonomous driving, the Mobility X Lab team is not experts within that, but then we can call in the experts, because we have an amazing networks within our partner companies. Or if it's radar, or if it's sustainability, we have those networks to engage the right people to evaluate the startups and which makes sense of joining us. And that also creates an early commitment from the partner companies to work with them. So then the startups, they join Mobility X Lab. And we have 3 different phases, you can call it. They're not tied to 6 months, but it's discover. And the first stage is just, should we do something? Can we do something? Should it be many partners working together? That's what we aim for. We want them to co-create something together, many industry partners with the startups, but it is complex, it is difficult, but that's also a differentiator to what others are doing and what they are doing on their own. So we have those discussions. And then what we call validations are proof of concept together between the startups and the partners. And what we aim for is acceleration. And acceleration means commercial contract between the startups and partners, or it can be an investment from our industry partners. And there's a third one. It might get to me. I just forgot it. And during this time, with the team I have at Mobility X Lab, the innovation managers, they check in with the startup. They check in with the partners who are working with the startup to make sure that these progress and accelerate and what they need and support them along the way. And we talked about the two different, animals, startup and corporate. And I usually say it's about balancing two superpowers, and it's the speed of the cheetah and the punch of the elephant. Amazing superpowers, but they are very, very different. And having Mobility X Lab as a neutral platform makes a huge difference, because I think you're all interested within innovation and probably familiar with the world of startups. A startup working together with a multinational company, they are in another position, and they might not dare to say different things to the industry or corporate partner that they're working with, but they can use Mobility X Lab, and we can take that and we can support them and help them in issues going forward. So shortly, what's going on the 6 years we've been around, we have received over 1,000 startups from over 50 countries around the world. And that's not due to a massive marketing budget. But what we realize now is that they recommend other startups to apply to Mobility X Lab, which we think is the best, evidence or credibility you can get. And we have so far had 94 startups joining us over the 6 years, and 5 just started now in August 2023. And about 50% of, or over 50% of the ones that has joined us has gone into the validation stage, which we call proof of concept. And we wouldn't expect 100% moving through, right? We're working with innovation, new things. We need to take risk. We need to fail. So we're very pleased with this number as well. So about half or over half of them has gone into a proof of concept. And as you see, that number is fairly high, 100. And that is because they work with more than one industry partner at the same time. And we have reached 19 acceleration. And as I mentioned, commercial contracts, partnerships, or investments from the industry to the startups. And we're very proud of this number as well, because the automotive industry is a very, very slow business to work with. It's a lot of deep tech. It's a lot of, long development times, and we know more of these will increase with time. And if you look, if we collect the data of how much money has been raised by the portfolio startups we have, it's amazing. They're doing really, really well. So that we're very proud of that as well. And this is just a screenshot of where in the world our startups are coming from. The red are the ones who have joined our program, and the blue are from the applications that we receive. And here you have them. It's from Canada to India, Sweden, and Europe. We say we don't have specific countries we want to work with. We say we want to work with the best. So we're open for anyone to apply, and they apply. And then we have a process. And sometimes startups from Gothenburg in Sweden say, why didn't we make the cut? But we won't say that, yeah, just because you're from this area, you will join. We want to work with the best. So it's a lot of software, of course. It's vision. It's what do we have? We have also more environmental friendly tires for electrical vehicles, super fast charging, edge computing. It's life science, it's med tech, it's different things. So depending on what the partners are looking for. And it's not sector specific in that way. You have to be a mobility company, but we say if the partners are interested in what you do, you're more than welcome to apply and join us. And here's one of our startups from Germany who says that this, first point of contact that they can start from and get, in touch with the right people at the right time. And also the CEO of Sensact is saying they really work in collaborations with startups, because there are the two different superpowers here. Good. Yes, and there's huge interest of what we're doing. I think it's even though there's similar, initiatives around the world, we are different. I mean, you probably heard of plug and play, but what we are doing is it's initiated by the industry, and they're also deeply engaged in this. This is theirs as well. So there's lots of attention to what we do. We have, I think you see to the right corner, there's royals, both from the Netherlands, the king and queen from the Netherlands, and the king and queen from Sweden, and we're presenting what we're doing. We're attending different fairs, CEOs, and when the Swedish presidency of the Council of the European Union discussed deep tech, we were invited, and they mentioned us on stage 2 times, which we thought was really, really interesting. And one time was there's the IESE Business School in Spain, Jose Maria, who has interviewed us, and he has done a report on venturing squads, corporate venturing squads, how many come together and the benefits of that. And I'm happy to share the link to his report if you're interested in reading more about that. And we also mentioned as an example in this book that Paulo and Adam has written about startup program design, and many others are also mentioned. So we're getting lots of attention and lots of delegations coming through our doors to where we get to talk about what we do. We're now 6 years and going strong and looking at developing and currently now screening more startups to join us for January next year. And the story of Mobility X Lab is we didn't know what we were doing from the start. It was like, we wanted to create this platform, create something new. So we dreamt big, very big. But how we did it was starting small. So we did a lot of pilots, lots of iterations. Does this work well? Does this make sense? And having that closeness to our industry partners and the startups was really, really great. And I do think also, I usually say we'll never be finished, because how can we stay accurate and stay on top of things? We need to make sure that we deliver value here today to our stakeholders and always adapt to that. Thank you. That was my introduction to what I am doing, and I'm happy to take any questions. And
great, Katarina. Thank you very much. So we are happy as well to hear any question or comments. So feel free to raise your hand or write in the chat. In the meantime, to break the ice, all right? So I have 2 questions actually. One is, can you provide a few examples of successful collaborations or partners within the industry, which really have contributed, like to the development of innovative solutions in the mobility?
Yeah. So we have, they were first called Anotel. They're our first ever startup, and we did everything in a trial base back then. They're now called Cognic. They did annotation of data, because if a self-driving car needs to drive, they need to, see the world, because they are the brain in the car, right? So annotating data, what's a road, what's a car, what's a sign, what's a, bush, that needs to happen, right? So they provided a solution doing that. And they were and we said initially, we also said this, I'm always able to be flexible and rethink. And in the beginning, we said, we'll work only with mature startups. But these were 2 guys, and they come from the Technical University in Gothenburg, and they were 1-month-old company. So they said, we have this idea, and they actually moved into our office space. We don't have startups sitting there today, but they did that. And they worked so close with Sensact, the company now developing, autonomous software solutions. And they were, our first, success case of creating commercial contracts with the partnerships. So they provide Sensact with annotation of data and have commercial contracts. And as they had our platform, they also got the same thing with the Volvo Group and Sevt at the same time, because they all met them and sat so close. And because they were so early, they could talk to the industry, because they were they were also in the office, every week. So they could have that interaction and adapt to what they were doing. And I think that's like the best success case in a way. We have Fortelix, also a company from working with autonomous driving solutions within confined spaces. So they are supporting Volvo Group with mines, they have large trucks who needs to move and kind of navigate in those spaces. And Volvo Group has also a partnership with them and also made an investment in them, as an example. And yeah, let me think of. We also have invested Spectralix, so it's also about autonomous driving and the vision and the head-up displays that comes and kind of the alert of. In Sweden, we talk a lot about. I don't know how you relate to this, but a big moose crossing the road and having the attention to the car to alert you before you even see it. So they have a solution around that, and a partnership together with Volvo Cars, as an example.
And right now I was thinking would be very interesting to understand from the big groups like Volvo or other companies. What do you see in terms of the culture? Are they investing more on internal basically innovation, like accelerations to increase the culture of innovation internally of their employees, encourage them to come up with business concept or innovative solutions? Or are they investing more on these ventures funds and finding where are the startups which are coming, with these innovative solutions, which is pretty much what you are doing? So where do you see them focus, or is it both?
Yeah, both, I would say, and it's very different between the different companies. And I think that's what's exciting, to gathering them on one platform, because they inspire and trigger each other, because they see, oh, someone's doing this, we need to do more of it. But I think that's more. And as I mentioned, I mean, innovation is very, on top of things in Sweden. It's very on the agenda, but there is also tough times and a recession now. So I think, it's the CFOs sitting there and saying, so how does this innovation activity give a return on investment? How much per, US dollars or euro will I get back? And I mean, working with innovation, that's longer lead time. So I think it is tougher times now. But I think my experience is that, when we started this, there were so many, or not so many, but there were people from the industry coming and telling me, and I was not from the industry, you're never going to succeed. We've tried this before, it's not going to work. But what I know from my experience and work experience, they're always champions. And when you look at innovations, they're always people who want to work with innovation, and they will do it even if they don't have funds or not. So I said, I want to work with the people who wants to work with this, and I did. So we succeeded with that. But saying that, I've seen a huge transition over the 6 years I've been doing this, from them saying when we don't work with startups, to having internal programs and platforms where they educate, their colleagues on how to do it. They have structures, they have processes to make sure they progress with startups. And also, as I mentioned, Volvo Group has innovative purchasing to make it easier to, get a deal with the startup, so to say. So it's different, but I see, as I'm not on the inside working with the colleagues and how they support them with innovation, we're not the platform for that. We're more focused on, the large with the small. So we're not within the, the colleagues within Volvo, for example, how they work with that. So it's more the large and the big and getting them together. And I've seen a huge transition over the 6 years, because they learned so much from each other. And I think that's also the benefit from the platform, having 6 partners. It's like, yeah, we have a challenge with this, and they can share, we do this, we do this, we do this, and they get inspired, and then they can create, a better process. And I think it's much easier for them to at Polestar say, oh, we learned this from Ericsson, they're doing it this way. Then they say, oh, I want to try something, that doesn't give the same, credibility, but they can actually, say that they have a, another industry partner doing something good that they want to try out.
Great. I see a couple of questions coming up. One is from Fernando. Fernando, do you want me to read your question, or do you want to speak up? Okay. So,
great. Hi, Tendra. Hi, how are you? It's just a hello to Katarina. And
hey,
say, Katarina, wonderful to have you on this GIMI think tank. I apologize, I'm in the middle of another conference also at the same time. But for everybody who's listening in, what Katarina is doing is game changing. Anytime you are able to link people together and connect those dots is really impactful. and then to give people choices and options as a mediator is a hard thing to do. So what Katarina's doing is very hard because you've got a lot of cats. I want to make sure every person is a cat with their own agendas. And how do you align their agendas together to make sure we all move in the same direction? And it's a lot of talking, a lot of socializing and all that. And Katarina, I'm just very, very proud of what you're doing. And I'm very excited that you were able to be on our event over here. Just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I'll let Fernando ask his question.
Okay, thank you. I'm doing my PhD program and studying the relationship with startups and corporates. How to evaluate this relationship? Is there any type of indicator or metrics to know if it's going right or wrong, and the goals to this relationship?
So, yeah, can you clarify a little bit? So, what do you want to evaluate? The startup corporate collaboration or the startups?
The relationship. It's going well. It's going fine.
Yeah.
There's one kind of governance to.
Yeah, and I think we don't have a metric on that, but I have the innovation managers. I have 3 innovation managers, Victor, Ahmed, and Konstantin. So what they do is during the 6 months, they have different, we call them check-ins. We of course have an Excel where we see, how it's going and kind of track with yellow, green, and red and so on. And we bring those up. We have the management team meetings, which are only, innovation directors from the corporate partners. We have those meetings every week. So we touch base with them, but then there's other within the partner companies who work with the startups. So my colleagues, the innovation managers, they talk to the startups, they talk to the colleagues who work with the startups, and they check in, so we get the full picture, and then we show kind of that and discuss that. So it's very qualitative. I wouldn't say it's quantitative with the lots of metrics and forms and that, but it's people talking to people, and as Hitendra said, it's tough work, and I think if they think that they can do it on their own, sure, go ahead, and I usually say it's like buying a membership card to the gym. Great, but you're not going to get fit if you don't go to the gym, and we are the personal trainer there telling you, like, showing up. Are you there? What did you do? How did you do it? How's it going? And evaluating that. So that's how I would explain it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Katarina. So I see another question from Cristanto. And basically he's trying to echo what we mentioned, that both corporates and startups speak different languages, are both different languages. So his question is more like, how do you charge for your service? Or what's your business model as a startup, since you are trying to do the matching?
Great. So Mobility X Lab, as I mentioned, we're not for profit. So what that means is that we get funds from the partners. They pay a partner fee, you can say. And then we offer our services for free to both startups and the partners. They pay for it, of course, right? But we don't have that kind of business model. We can get also support, as we mentioned. We are very supported by the region in West Sweden, because they think we're doing a great job and fostering innovation for the future of better mobility and sustainability as well. So we're getting funds from them, which can have more people on our team. But it's the partner who pays a fee to us, and then we provide them with the service and also the service to the startup.
Okay, great. Clear. I see another question from Dre, and he's asking, is there a particular strategy on how your startup does future thinking on the context of mobility? So what are the ways how you do the research, or basically research the trends and
So I say, to get engagement, we want to create engagement from our industry partners, right? And to get that engagement, we need to make sure that the startups and the focus areas we pick are relevant to them. And it's always interesting, right? Because having 6 partners, they have different ideas and different focuses, and there's individuals having different agendas as well, right? So we have to make, we have to create this path of doing what they're asking for, but also being open to, you know, the disruptive, to other things as well. So we work a lot with the network, and I think of it as being ambidextrous, right? So now, as there's a recession, I think our partners are asking for more mature startups because they want to get quicker results because of the times we're in, right? There's pressure on everyone to deliver things. And then, but at the same time, what I hear them say, wow, we should work with really, really early startups as well and entrepreneurs. So I always set up things to kind of capture both things at the same time, and making sure I can provide, you know, what they are asking for at the right time in a way. So I don't know if that's the answer, but it's a lot of, you know, in a way, you know, manual stakeholder networking to capture as much as we can, and much of intelligence, and then also, you know, structuring that. And when it's the right time, we will provide them with what they need. But we do have, as a very structured, you know, program and process for what we're looking for at the same time. But we're always open for new things. But I think that that's the trick, right? To have, and I call it a framework usually, not a program, because I see a framework. A framework is like, it's two sides like this, but then we can bounce like this in between. And the more, you know, we do what we do, we can be, you know, also go outside and do new things, because it's running the way it should.
Great. I see another question from Lucia. Lucia, if you want to speak up, basically, or I can read it. Okay, so she's pretty much mentioning that, trying to summarize what you are doing with the startups and focus areas. And she's asking, are the startups working with all established companies, or the startup works with one particular company? So I believe like in matching process. So is one startup, for example, having a partnership with more than one corporate, or is it?
So our requirement of joining Mobility X Lab is that it has to be at least two, more than one, because as I mentioned, they all have their own, you know, startup initiatives, and sure, they can do that. But what we want to do with the Mobility X Lab platform is to challenge, you know, the way of working. How do we work more together? How do we do things in a different way and a new way? So that's why we have that requirement. So we want to foster we call it multi-partner collaborations. It's very complex and difficult. So at times, what we see is that a startup will continue with only one partner, perhaps. But a requirement to join us is that at least two of the partners are interested. And that's also great, because then the startup knows, oh, well, nothing happened with Ericsson, who were interested, but it wasn't the right time. No, but you have a connection with Polestar, and things are moving along there. So it's very good for the startups to have one platform to come to and interacting with all of these. Instead of having 6, you know, individual meetings, they can come to us and meet them at the same time. So I think it's very efficient. Yeah.
Great. Do we have other questions or comments?
Hi, it's Brett. Good morning for me. Good afternoon, good evening for you. By the way, I've been to Gothenburg several times. Lovely, lovely place. Anyone who hasn't been there, it's a nice place to visit. I actually like it better than Stockholm. So, yeah, my question is, so, you know, at least here in the US, this collaborative effort sometimes doesn't work very well, many times because of intellectual property. You know, you might have a company that needs $100,000 to finish programming. Everybody wants a piece of the action. Really difficult to protect your intellectual property. You know, and I guess a big piece of this is society in Sweden. From your international partnerships, so the people who come in internationally from a different culture, is there any challenge to them working in a more open environment than, say, you know, in the US, the first thing you do is protect yourself with a contract, lawyers, and NDAs. Which might be a culture shock to come to Sweden, to come to your organization and actually have to put some trust in people that they're not going to exploit you as a small business.
Right. Yeah. So we work with our kind of values, our openness, trust, and collaboration. and we're there to guide those startups as well. But I hear you. I do think that the startups that we collaborate with, they are, in many times, they're the right people who join us. And I think, I mean, they're from so many different countries around the world. But what we see is that also in our screening process, it's not only the technology and the innovation that's of interest, but it's also about the people behind and the team, right? And I've seen, you know, startups presenting, you know, the best innovative technology ever, but they were really difficult to collaborate and work with. There was no, you know, people matching, so they were not invited. So I would say that, of course, it's a challenge, but I think the entrepreneurs that has joined and it has worked very well. It's like the values have matched. Our values of trust, openness, and collaboration have matched. What we've also done, because we know that there's an issue of this, so we collected all, you know, the legal people from our partner companies. Can you even imagine them in a room? And said, we want to create a template to make it easier to work together and work together with the startups. And actually, they were really, really positive. And after 2 workshops, we have a multi-partner collaboration agreement. And it's not, you know, one size fits all, but at least it would help everyone along the way, that there's, you know, a framework to kind of look at and discuss and so on. And if the startups feel that they're completely run over, they can come to us and say that, and we can, you know, pull the industry partner by the ear and say, oof, you cannot behave like this, you know. So I think we're that interface in between that kind of makes it easier to work together.
Good. Well, congratulations. Maybe it's you that's in the water.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. As a follow-up question, maybe on what Brett mentioned is, since you have a couple of years right now doing this job, and you have seen also international startups basically screening them and all this, do you have any data? I was wondering, like, any country which has really innovative culture where the startups are flourishing, or any gender or in terms of age? Have you done this?
It's very, very interesting. And when I started in the automotive industry 6 years ago, and not coming from there, it was very male oriented. And even though Sweden is very, you know, we're all for gender equality, and that that's a huge shift that's happened as well, on how we think and act and who we show, and also the startups who apply, that they're more, you know, females in the leadership teams now. In Sweden, everyone has that on the agenda, but we see internationally maybe not. And on your question, what was it you asked? But I mean, Canada within AI, amazing, I would say. We have great collaborations with the trade commissioners in Canada, so they are happy to help us and guide us to get the right startups that we want to work with. And also, of course, Israel is a very, you know, they have lots of technology and innovation, and they're also high on the innovation index in the world, and we've seen good collaboration with startups from there. Otherwise, it's a fairly scattered, the US as well, but I would say we had more from Canada than the US. Yeah, and Finland is interesting, of course, but it's very, you know, I think we have not a huge marketing budget, so we have had more of a, you know, pull effect of startups who wants to work with us. They apply to us, and that's where kind of the matching happens, and we get the rights from different countries. And I'm very, very curious about India. We did an initiative with India, and I was also there with my executive MBA in January. I'm really, really excited. I mean, to learn more and understand how we can collaborate more with what's going on there. I don't have the right answer yet, but I'm very, very interested in that, because so much is happening, right? But it's a huge country. So, yeah.
Great. Let me ask you the last question, basically to wrap up this session. In the beginning, you mentioned that you didn't know very well the industry, but now I believe it's easier, and we know that who are the main players who are shaping the industry, like Tesla in electric vehicles, or right, basically Waymo basically in self-driving technology and other leaders. So how do you see this industry evolving, and basically how do you basically foresee your position as a startup in the next 5-10 years?
I think, I mean, you need to decide. Now I'm working on kind of by, you know, the wish of the large corporate partners, because they want this, they want to do this, right? But as a startup, I would say, if you want to work with a large corporate organization, that would have the benefit of having a global network immediately, for example, huge resources and all that. But as a startup, you need to consider and think about, do you want to do that or not? That's a choice you have, right? Because it is a bit difficult, it is challenging, but once you get into the door, you have all these connections, and it's a huge difference of having those relations if you want to work with them, if you wouldn't, right? But I say, as a startup, consider if you want to go down that route, and if you do, I mean, everyone is very much open for partnership today. I also would say, what is the future of mobility? I think about this a lot, and I think as a startup, I would say it's ease of life. That any solution that can contribute to ease of life for us as human individuals and companies, that's the future of mobility. So to not like narrow it down and be very specific, I think there's so many more, you know, cross sector convergence. Then I think we need to work across sectors. I think that's very exciting. How can we, if you're within one industry, how could that be applied to the automotive industry? I think that's exciting. I mean, life science and its sensors measuring, you know, heart pressure and what that, but maybe that's in the car seat, right? You know, so how can you think cross sectors and cross industries and have that network to think outside, you know, the industry box at least? I think that's really, really exciting. Do more of that and talk to people.
And in the end, basically, what is your taking into consideration your very diverse experience in this industry, but in general, Katarina, what is your what is the takeaway for the audience today when it comes to first the mobility industry? So what should we be aware of? You know, what are we in terms of the trends or innovative solutions? And the second thing I would like an insight from you is how to make it happen, the collaboration between startups and corporates, because we know it's difficult. Many have tried and many have failed because of the different culture. Basically, also the people who lead those two companies, let's say, are different, and we have seen many failures, and many people do not believe in this corporate venturing thing. So what is your about that?
Yeah, so the trend in the industry, I would say, and perhaps Sweden, I mean, sustainability, we talk about impact, that's on everyone's, you know, lips, right? And as I mentioned, Polestar, a performance, you know, electrical vehicle who wants to build the first climate neutral car by 2030. How do they do that? Through collaboration. So I think, I mean, sustainability is something that is key. Like, if you don't think sustainability and impact, start doing that now. I would definitely say you have to do that. That's like a sanity check, at least for us in Sweden, and I hope for you guys as well. And how to succeed with startup corporate collaboration, I think a success factor is, I mean, the CEOs took this decision, they were backing it, but also having this, you know, personal trainer, the interface between the startup and the corporate. Because otherwise, if you want to create a new culture, if you want to change something, that's extremely difficult. So how can you create that platform and the interface where it's okay to try new things and do new things, and also to have someone who is on both teams, the startup and the corporate team? Because the startup will never, you know, dare to say different things to the industry if things are failing or not going well, because they're so dependent on their liking, and we see a lot of that. So I think that's our success factor. Was there another question?
I think it is great. Thank you very much for joining this session, Katarina. I saw many comments, people who want to reach out to you. So I shared the LinkedIn, I shared also your email. And I think a lot enjoyed this conversation about future mobility, and what you are doing is great, has its impact. You are very close social impact still, I think. And you are basically making your dream happen, being an entrepreneur, and also feed your social impact, basically, desire. So this, as you know, for everyone, this speech will be converted in an insight report that we'll share with Katarina, and then we'll share with all the audience here and GIMI audience. And the recording will be very soon in our library of speaker, GIMI Think Tank website, and we'll share in our marketing and social media channels. So thank you very much, Katarina. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next week on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Bye.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.